Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. All right, brace yourselves. Now, I will acknowledge to you that the threat of tariffs, the tariffs in place, have not had a large effect overall on a lot of the goods and services we are seeing out there. But there is one industry that I am concerned that it could have an effect on, if not just from a supply and demand effect. And that is prescription medications. Do you know China is responsible for sending so many of our most vital prescription medications over here? And maybe even more important than the prescription medications are the ingredients of the prescription medications that we use to make our drugs here in the United States. If it's not an increase in price, it could be a supply issue, which is why, as you know, I am a big proponent of the wellness company's emergency medical kits. These are prescription medications in here. I am now hoarding prescription medications like I hoard ammunition, like I hoard food and water. I want to be prepped for anything. This is one of the kits. twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. You've got ivermectin in here. You've got a Z-Pack. You've got amoxicillin and a whole slew of other prescription medications you may need. Now, President Trump is threatening 250% tariffs on much of these prescription medications. Are you ready for that? And if you're not, you better be, which is why I urge you to get one of these kits. You see the address on your screen there, twc.health/grant. So I want to talk about the threat to prescription medications and maybe even more importantly, how we got ourselves in this position. Because I actually believe it's a national security issue. President Trump is doing what he needs to do to bring prescription medications back to the United States so we aren't reliant on foreign adversaries for our health. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. With that, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, not just me, but also Dr. Ben Tapper, who was with the wellness company. Dr. Tapper, it's great to see you. Your thoughts about where we're headed with prescription medications and what these tariffs may do?
Well, I mean, tariffs are a form of taxation, right? So you're going to increase and penalize importation of these goods or pharmaceuticals or whatever it may be. The end result is going to be a higher price for consumers. Make no mistake. Whether it's going to cause a shortage or not in the supply, it's going to increase prices 100%. So, I think whether this is going to be good for the long term for, the state of our health in this country, I don't know yet. I think it's still up in the air. But one thing is for sure, it's going to increase the price of pharmaceuticals or just increase it all around the board in healthcare.
All right. I'm a believer that I'm not quite sure yet if it'll increase prices because I don't know if the pharmaceutical companies will eat the tariffs. What we've seen with so many other things is that the prices didn't go up as we thought they would. They could here. Supply chain issues could be occurred. They may just hold back drugs, which is why I say the safe play is to buy one of these emergency medical kits now and have prescription medications on hand. And then our argument's moot because you've got the prescription medications. But the other side to this is national security. I believe even if it gets painful in the short term, that President Trump is looking at national security to bring manufacturing back to the United States. We've seen it with steel and other things, companies now flocking to the United States under the threat of these tariffs. Do you think ultimately we need to bring prescription medications and the ingredients back home?
Well, when it comes to healthcare, I think we do have a real issue, especially with the importation of these pharmaceuticals. I don't trust other foreign countries manufacturing these first and foremost, but, I just think we have a problem all around the board with medications. I think that there's, we take too many of them first and foremost, but again, the importation, the quality control, I don't think is there in these other countries. I think Americans just have a general idea that these drugs are safe and, effective, and they have no idea where they're manufactured, what's in these drugs. And so I think it's important that we bring these back home and have a little bit more regulation in the states here on these drugs. And it's going to increase quality control. I think that's in reality, in return to this, is going to increase our health. So we need to understand that we do have a problem with the importation here. And so I think that this could be a good thing. I'm not really in support of government increasing taxation, but when it comes to pharmaceuticals, I think it might be a good thing.
Yeah, and I've been open that I've never been a big guy on tariffs, but I will tell you what President Trump's been doing. He's proven me wrong in much of this. We're seeing a lot of money come in, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you got to protect yourself from the worst from happening, which is why these prescription medication kits are, in my opinion, the way to go. This is President Trump talking about the possibility of tariffs on our prescription medications.
And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here. Now they all left. They went to other places because we allowed people that sat in this room allowed it to happen. And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen. So we're going to be announcing pharmaceuticals, chips, and various couple of other things, big ones.
All right, so we know about the other things. It amazes me, Dr. Tapper, that, again, it's not just pharmaceuticals, but other very important things, rare earth minerals. We've basically just let it all go to China. China controls all of this stuff. It is dangerous to let China control the amount of things that they do.
Well, 100%. I mean, it's concerning to me. I mean, think about how many things are imported from China. I mean, it breaks my heart. I mean, my kids even notice, Dad, everything I see says made in China. And it's a real issue we have. We need to bring production back into the States. We need to, if you want to make America great again, we need to have production, manufacturing back into the States here. I mean, America was known for its industrial age when this country was thriving. We were manufacturing goods. We had American workers here, American goods and things made in the USA. So we need to support that with everything we have and vote with our dollars. Support that made in the USA and getting things back into this country. That's how we make this economy strong again. And but I think we're going through a trial period. We're going to have some growth pains back in this country, and we're going to have some hardships. And that's how we grow. That's how we grow stronger. We can't fear that. So I think we might have some rough days ahead of us. But again, that's how we grow stronger as a nation.
So Big Pharma here in the United States also buys a lot of its ingredients from China. I believe Big Pharma has an addiction to China. Why is it? Is it just that China does it cheaper?
Well, it's cheaper. I mean, I've did some cross comparison with manufacturing things in this country and in China, and it blows my mind. I mean, I've seen healthcare equipment, medical devices that are very, very expensive in the States, and then you go to China. Yes, it might not be the best quality manufacturer, but there's some things that you can get by with in the medical industry that's unbelievably cheaper to get in China, even have it manufactured. It blows my mind. And so there's a medical device I was looking at that was 80 grand here in the States. That same unit with the same specs, same qualifications, I can get it for 4,000 in China. So, why is that? Why are things cheaper? Are they using child labor laws? Who are violating child labor laws? I don't know. I mean, it makes you wonder, but there is a real concern there, and we can't compete with that. So we have to ask ourselves, why are things so expensive in the States to have manufactured here? But there is a real problem, and like you said, why do we have this addiction with China? But again, people, if they can find it cheaper, they'll go to the lower cost. It's all about the mighty dollar.
Amazing. 80,000 versus 4,000. It's almost, if you're looking at it from a business perspective, providing it's not so dangerous, it's going to kill or harm your patients. But
yes.
But it's worth the risk. It's worth the 4,000. If it breaks in a year, buy another one, and you're still better off.
Right. And that's the thing. And so many people do that. They look at the dollar, and people, they want to save the money, and it's all about margins to them. And especially a business owner, you care about margins, and but you want to provide high quality. But if they can back things with the quality and the same specs, it's a no-brainer. They're going to go to the cheaper model.
All right, let me play President Trump again talking about this.
We're doing it because we want to make our own drugs. We're doing it because we want to make our own steel and aluminum, lumber, other things. And they're all coming in. We have record numbers, $7 trillion. Since I announced, like a month and a half ago, since I came in, we have over $7 trillion being invested in the country. We didn't have $1 trillion. We didn't have $500 billion for some of these guys. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. So we have the largest investment that we've ever heard of, and we're only 2 months in. And that'll continue at levels that you've never seen before.
Well, I think if he's correct on this, and it seems to be that he's correct on many of the industries that he mentioned, including car manufacturing, if the manufacturers of prescription medications would bring all the production facilities back to the United States, one, they're going to save on the tariffs. Two, we increase our national security, and it's better for everybody, Doc.
100%. I agree with that 100%. Like I said, I think we're going to have some growth pains here. We're going to see it might be a short-term and acute phase where it's going to be hard. There's going to be some struggles. The economy might dip a little ways, but I think for the long term, I do think it's going to be a good thing. Anytime we can increase production here in American soil, I think that's a good thing.
All right, which is why I would tell people that this is what you want to have. One of these. This is the prescription medicine kits. I've got a field kit, too, by the way. This thing is really cool. I'll open it up. You've got an EpiPen in here, which I think any household needs an EpiPen. That's what this is. But especially if you've got kids coming over to play in the summertime and, they have an allergic reaction to something, whether it's a bee sting or something else, you want one of those EpiPens in your arsenal. This is the field kit. So when I tell you I'm hoarding prescription medications, I mean, I got this, and you guys can do this too, folks, by just going to twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off, and make sure you and your family are protected, especially if we start to see some of these disruptions that we're talking about. This was a news report about it. I'm going to play some of it because it's interesting to what they were saying here.
President Trump this week signed an executive order to refill the strategic reserves for pharmaceuticals. The order helps reduce America's dependence on other countries, even adversaries like China, for life-saving medicine. According to the White House, 2 out of 5 finished prescription drugs are made in the U.S., and 1 in 10 active pharmaceutical ingredients are made here in the U.S., with a significant portion sourced in China.
The United States depends on China for 95% of the key components that are necessary to make our generic drugs. And if China shut the door on exports within months, our healthcare system would begin to collapse. That's how dependent we are. And it's not just us. The world is dependent. Europe is dependent.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a recent congressional testimony that China has significant leverage over pharmaceuticals and that it would be disastrous if they stopped sending them to the U.S.
A large part of our pharma does come from the PRC. That actually gives them negotiating leverage. I think it would be a tragic mistake if they were ever to flip off that switch, but it's always there. They could. They flipped off other switches.
Trump's order also encourages more domestic production of these ingredients. He's also working to revive domestic pharmaceutical production with tariffs.
And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says that such tariffs will stop the U.S. from relying so heavily on China.
We can't be relying on China for fundamental things that we need. Our medicines and our semiconductors need to be built in America.
The strategic reserve will stockpile active pharmaceutical ingredients rather than the finished drug products, as they often have a stronger shelf life. The program was created under Trump's first term, but Trump criticized the Biden administration for leaving the reserve nearly empty. The U.S. has other strategic reserves, too, in case of a national emergency, stockpiling things like oil, food, and critical minerals.
All right, so the last thing I want to do is be relying on government to access their critical medical supply and prescription drug supplies. I'd rather have my own reserve for that, Dr. Tapper, wouldn't we? This is all about self-reliance as opposed to reliance on government.
100%. I mean, I think Thomas Jefferson said it best. He said that if the people let the government decide what foods they eat, what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in a sorry state as those souls who live under tyranny. I mean, we can't trust our government when it comes to health. We have to take health in our own hands here and be proactive when it comes to our health, and not just wait on the government or wait on a vaccine or another, China-based drug.
It's interesting because what President Trump is doing, it may be painful in the beginning. It may cause some disruptions. And we're giving you a solution of how to take care of those disruptions. But in the end, I do believe he's sincere about his attempt to, fix a national security issue of China being in control of, what does she say, 95% of the ingredients, the compounds made for generic drugs, 95%. I guess I'd ask the question, how did we not have a president before or a Congress before to address this problem? I guess it was a slow drip to China. I mean, how did we let this happen?
Well, if you look at our pharmaceutical lobbyists, the pharmaceutical lobbyists right now in our government outnumber tobacco and oil 3-1. That's why. Because pharmaceuticals, they don't care about our health. They care about the almighty dollar. They care about profits and margins. So they're going to go to where they can manufacture things the cheapest. This is why all drugs are manufactured in China. Just look at the medical device I talked about, 80,000 versus $4,000. If you can get a drug manufactured in China for pennies on the dollar compared to the US, it's a no-brainer on a business standpoint. You're going to go find the cheapest manufacturer. So what happens when they do that? They use lower quality ingredients. This is why, generic pharmaceuticals have a higher adverse reaction. They have more side effects versus your name brand. And it's because it's higher quality than name brand. I don't endorse all medications, but there might be a time and place for them. They can be life-saving at times, but when you have cheaper ingredients, you're going to have more problems.
Yeah. This was Fox News talking about President Trump's basically economic plan and why he's doing what he does.
People always ask, what is a president's foreign policy doctrine? And they try to characterize it, in whole after 4 years. What is President Trump's economic philosophy? And I think it can be summed up as the working man and woman's economic agenda. When you combine tariffs, that's not a doctrinaire conservative policy, with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security benefits, not doctrinaire Republican policy, and then most favored nation, these all point toward a president who is saying, I'm here for the working man and woman, not the upper 50% who own the stock market, but the lower 50%. It's a beautiful thing to see. During my tenure, he often brought up most favored nation. In fact, he wanted to do it back in 2020, and he did do it in part. And he said he had 4 executive orders, and he signed 3 of them. And he called the 4th one the granddaddy of all of them. And that 4th executive order sitting in front of him was most favored nation. And he gave the pharmaceutical industries a deadline. He said, you have until 12 o'clock, August 24th, 2020, to get your prices in order or I'm signing this. Well, here he is doing this. It's part of a holistic agenda.
All right. So your thoughts on what she's saying there, Dr. Tapper?
Well, I mean, I do think that, how do you say this? There can be a lot of good that's going to come about what Trump is doing and what she's talking about. And I think that if we, obviously there's a lot of evil and corruption in our healthcare industry, and there needs to be some changes. And it's not going to be pretty. There's not going to be things that we're going to agree with on everything, because I think the pharmaceutical industry the roots go deep in this country. The roots go deep in our healthcare system. They have a massive stronghold on our current healthcare system. So things have to change. We have to, change the paradigm here. I mean, look at the chronic disease rate right now. We have 80% of Americans suffering with a chronic disease, and it's usually associated with poor lifestyle choices. And, arguably, a lot of these medications are just palliating poor lifestyle. And so really we have to have some changes, and it's not going to be pretty, but from even all angles, from the cost of medications to how we are going about things and how we're treating really chronic disease to everything above. But really, so I'm thankful that we're even having this discussion, because we are seeing these changes occur. And I think in order to have peace, we have to go through the chaos. And I think that's what we're going through right now.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I want to turn topics now to parasites. This is something I've only recently learned about. To be upfront, I am on a wellness company parasite cleanse. I do feel like my head is less. I don't want to say that I had brain fog, but I feel like I have more energy as well. I'm about halfway through a 20-day course of this parasite cleanse, and I feel like my energy has gone up. Now, I'm a big red meat eater, and I'm a big fish eater, and I like salmon. Now, all the videos online that I'm seeing, that is what forced me to go on this parasite cleanse, is the salmon in grocery stores. Is this legit, Dr. Tapper, that you got parasites in these fish in well-known grocery stores? It's going to get into your body, and they're going to stay there, and you can't get rid of them unless you're on a parasite cleanse like one offered up from the wellness company?
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure is that I think the parasite topic and just the parasite infection rate is a much bigger issue than what we're led to believe. I mean, we have documentation right now, literature that talks about how a lot of these cancers can be parasitic in nature. We have a lot of chronic disease that can be parasitic in nature, autoimmune that can be parasitic in nature, and so I do believe parasites play a bigger role than what we were taught and what we're led to believe. And so, I can't confirm or deny that parasite video with the salmon, but I do think I don't doubt it. I think that it's a real issue. Look at our. I was having this conversation this morning about farm raised salmon. Salmon. Right now, even in Alaska, even if it says wild caught, a lot of these salmon are actually they were in a hatchery, and a lot of these farm raised fish are more vulnerable to parasitic infection, and then they get released into the wild, and then we catch these salmon and think that they're going to be healthy, but truth be told, a lot of these animals, they're prone to have parasites. I mean, I took my boy turkey hunting in spring, and we harvested the turkey, and I was cutting out the breasts and everything, and there was parasites on the meat. And so we threw the meat out. I didn't want to consume it. And so I do believe that it's a real issue. And so I think everyone should be on a parasite cleanse. I think everyone should be doing this. But I also think, we shouldn't be on it all full time. I think, maybe once a year would be probably a good thing to do.
All right. That was going to be my question to you, because the parasite cleanse, I believe, comes with, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 3 courses. It was at 90 pills, and it's a 20-day course for the parasite cleanse. So you've got extra. So you're thinking once a year to do a parasite cleanse?
I mean, I know people that say every 6 months. I think that might be a little invasive, but I think that, at least once a year might be a good thing. I know there were docs back in the day, 100 years ago, that would do they'd recommend a parasite cleanse every 6 months. Not all MDs, but that was some of their protocols. It makes you wonder, even this whole COVID thing, why like ivermectin was helping people. And, and so it makes you wonder, because ivermectin is an anti-parasitic medication. Same with hydroxychloroquine. Right. And, why were these drugs helping people get better? So it makes you wonder, was COVID even a parasitic type infection? It just makes you wonder. So I think that, I do believe that, that the anti-parasitic things, medications, or any type of anti-parasitic type foods like pumpkin seeds, different things like that, can be very beneficial and should be on the regular.
All right, let me play this clip from grabbed it off social media. Quite disgusting to say the least. Watch.
So yesterday, my family and I went to Costco and we bought fresh wild sockeye salmon fillets. Okay, we just bought 1 pack of them. And when you get it out of the refrigerated section, obviously it's very, very cold. So as salmon sits out for a little bit, it obviously warms up a little bit. So our drive was a little over an hour home. So by the time we got home, it wasn't super, super cold anymore. Guess what starts popping out of the salmon when we got home? I really wish I was lying. If you are squeamish, if you have a sensitive tummy in any way, that was your warning. Here's the fresh salmon, fresh wild sockeye salmon. Sell by date is August 14th, and we bought this yesterday. So today is, I think, the 12th. I don't even know. Anyway, so I let this sit out all night because by the time I saw the first couple little parasites sticking out, I was like, obviously not going to eat it. So I left it sitting out all night so that I could see how many more popped up. Are you ready? Focus. There's 1. Look at it's moving. There's 2 more. This area right here has so many, I can't even count them.
Doc, I'll come back to this video in a second, but that's freaking disgusting.
Just lost my appetite, Grant.
I'm sorry. Right before lunch, it's on the East Coast. It's 12:40. If anybody's watching this during lunch, I hope they're not eating salmon. But this is not the only video I've seen like this. I've seen video after video after video online about these worms popping up. Now, I would imagine if you cook the salmon, they're going to kill the worms. That's what I call them because that's what they look like. But who wants to eat cooked through salmon? I like my salmon basically raw.
Yeah, I'm not eating that. I'm not eating it, Grant. You can cook it all you want, buddy. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on that. But then how do you know that more doesn't have it? You know, you get one where they didn't pop out and they're on the inside. I mean,
yeah, it's again, I think it goes back to the importance of why we should be all on a parasite cleanse. You know, I've seen videos like that with pork and parasites popping out of pork. And, you know, you hear talk about literature, how, pigs are very vulnerable to parasites, and they're actually the most parasitic, vulnerable animal that we consume. And I think that's, it just makes you just wonder.
I was told too that if you have pets, that you're vulnerable to having parasites that near pets. Have you heard that?
I've heard that. I've heard the statement: if you have a pet, you have a parasite. I mean, that's the general theme, but I'm not sure if that's 100% true. But you just never wonder. I have chickens, and I know they're prone to parasites. I have pets at home, and I let them outside. I live in the country, and they go outside. So, and who knows? I've seen my little Shih Tzu poodle munching on different dead animals. It makes you wonder: do they have parasites? And then we let that dog back in the home. And so, again, we are in an environment where parasites cling to the vulnerable. And this is why we need to take care of our systems, take care of the body, because parasites, like when we are immunocompromised, this is where parasites go. And again, going back to that wild caught, it does break my heart when you see wild caught. It's not necessarily wild caught because a lot of these salmon are hatchery raised. So I think truly wild caught or wild salmon are usually healthier. But again, we have to get away from these hatchery raised salmon, and I think that's why a lot of them do have parasites.
Yeah, so this is the parasite cleanse by the Wellness Company, and you can go to twc.health/grant, use the promo code GRANT, mebendazole and ivermectin. This is another view, a close-up view of the salmon, pretty freaking gross, and then you just basically fill out a form, and they'll get back to you and send you this parasite cleanse. I've already started mine. I'm 10 days in, and I've seen a difference in my energy. I don't know if that's typical. Would that be typical of going through a parasite cleanse, that you could have an energy boost, Doc?
Well, people experience all different sorts of, results from doing a parasite cleanse. I mean, more energy. I've had patients actually be, they're sleeping better. There can be, they get their step back to their energy, but it all depends on the person. And I think that it's important when we do these parasite cleanses too, that we use some, like a binder. They have some charcoal binders too that you can get to take with this, because when parasites die, they like poop out toxins, they poop out metals, and I think that's important that we have binders taken with these. But again, it's I've had patients head fog is gone away, sleeping better, all these different things. But even there's the diet. If you're bloated, if you have different dark circles under the eyes, I think that can be indicative too of having a parasite. And I think it's warranted.
Well, I started eating a little bit healthier. My bloat did go away. I'm in pretty good shape, but I was dealing. The older you get this. I don't know. They call it steroid gut. I'm on testosterone, so you'll see like Joe Rogan kind of has it too. That has started to go away on the parasite cleanse, but I also started to eat healthier too, so that could have something to do with it as well. But I would urge everyone to get one of these. As Dr. Tapper says, once a year, twice a year is probably a good idea. Doc, it's always great having you on the program. I appreciate you coming on today, and thank you, as always.
Yeah, Grant, thanks so much.
Absolutely, buddy. And let me, again, throw the website up there for you folks, twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT. 3 times the Wellness Company has sold out of this parasite cleanse, which is why I'll tell you, it works. If you look at free markets, they're selling out like crazy. Back in stock. You can get one. Tell them Grant sent you. twc.health/grant. And, of course, the prescription medication kit, so important, too, as we start to face these tariffs coming in. Who knows what's going to happen? And I always just say, be prepared. You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. It goes for my guns and ammunition. Goes for prescription medications as well. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Stinchfield's Army Rolls. We'll see you tonight on the Real America's Voice show. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.